The PC environment is dominated by the keyboard and mouse, but every so often, Xbox and PS port a game onto PC, and then it's like really horrible keyboard controls, and you might just need a controller, so enter the F310. Good afternoon and welcome to Turbo Tortoise Tech. Today on the T3 we're doing the masters of thrust versus the technical logical people over here. And this is a very long-term fight. It's sort of like the Montagues and the Capulets. You can see who studied their Shakespeare now, whoever got that reference. I'll see you over there, player. But these two literally are like that, where Thrustmaster and Logitech pretty much trade blows, like from these 300 Rand gamepads all the way to like 10,000 Rand steering wheels. And it's sort of no different here, except that Logitech is kind of cheating and they've come with a bazooka to a pistol fight. So I have had this Thrustmaster dual analog for must be going on like 5 years. It's seen some stuff. It's been used extensively. You can see I no longer have a 1 and a 2 key. Can you tell that I use it mostly for racing games, gear up and gear down? How you doing? So yeah, that's why that looks like that. And it's got triggers and it's got the default sort of Xbox layout. And similarly, so does the Logitech, except that this has a couple of, well, nice extras over and above that the Thrustmaster actually can't do. So let's start off from the top with the actual physical gamepad itself and what you get. PS style controller, very PS2 kind of controller. It is a little bit different in shape. And that does honestly affect how it's used. But most importantly, up front over here on R2 and L2, or in the right trigger and left trigger as it's been named in this case, this is an Xbox, like an X input controller, but with a PS layout, which is very kind of like, I like the slap in the face on both sides, Logitech.
Sir, I'm arrested. Oh.
As I said, triggers, real triggers, actual triggers, not just on or off like our Thrustmaster here. Real triggers with real travel in them as well. Positioning is pretty decent, especially for dirt. When I played NFS, their control setup is a bit sucky because of where they've put NOS and everything like that. So the gear up and gear down is on the top here. I only play games in manual because you get an inherent advantage of having control over the gearbox. To use the gearbox to slow down into the corners, especially in games like Need for Speed, where it doesn't factor in gearbox wear and tear. So I can just slam those gears down and force the car to slow down a lot faster than I would if I was just braking. So you can see the inherent advantage of that. Except you got to play like this. And because you got to play like this, and because of the shape of this quite long and quite thick boy controller arms that it's got, it makes it just a little bit difficult to get to them. But that's literally only in NFS. In dirt, I wasn't uncomfortable at all. That felt really good to have over there. And equally with the brake on this side, I can apply less or more brake and give it little, sharp taps or sharp taps of accelerator or little bits of accelerator, feathering through corners and stuff. Much nicer on this because you have that option. The D-pad on this controller is also superior to pretty much anything else at the price. Well, it is superior to anything else at the price point because they put 4 switches in the D-pad and you can feel it when you push on them. It does feel much nicer, and they've raised it up a little bit, which I really like. It gives it quite a nice feel over there, and going in diagonal directions is very clear and concise because of how those buttons and stuff feel. It gives a much better tactile feel underneath the thumb, and the result of that is I absolutely destroyed in Tekken, because that's what I grew up with. We didn't even have analogs until the end of PS1, and Tekken 3 was like staple life, and that was pretty much the setup that we played off of. So I still play off of that most comfortably until this day. And yeah, I did some butt kickery of the perfect variety, so I can vouch for it there. It felt really damn good. The analogs themselves as well for driving everything. The sensitivity was good. I didn't need much dead zone. I only put about 5 to 10% depending on the game, and then went ham. Everything else was perfect. No dead zone needed for the triggers. They do go to true 0 on the end of their palm, which is super nice to have. Then in the middle of the controller, we have a back and a start. Normal sort of stuff to have over there. But underneath that, you might notice a mode select. And what that does is it allows you to switch the D-pad with the analog. So this actually becomes an analog input and the D-pad gets switched over here. So depending on the game, you can just switch between the two if you want to switch which control set you're using. So it's got that like PlayStation kind of effect that the PS would do, but it's built into the controller. And then the controller, like I said, it's X input. So it picks up as an Xbox controller. The Thrustmaster can do that as well. You just got to switch between the two different inputs on the actual like normal hub. It's actually in the USB game controller in Windows. It installs like a secondary skin, as it were, in there for the Thrustmaster. But this has it built into the controller. Now, speaking of modes, this has one other little parting piece in the fact that on the bottom over here, there's a little switch and you can actually switch it between X input and direct input. And then when it's on direct input, you can use Logitech's profiler to reassign any of the keys depending on games and different titles and stuff you might be playing. So it will only do those assignments for that specific game. That's the true Logitech finesse over there. I also think the controller looks a little bit better. It is quite a lot bigger in the hand. I mean, like I said, I don't have the smallest palms and stuff. I mean, my base to tip over there is nearly 20 centimeters. And just putting it around the controller, you can see like how much bigger the Logitech is. I can't even get my fingers together on the Logitech in the middle. They don't even touch, whereas on the Analogue, they can quite easily overlap. So reaching things on this felt a little bit better for like those kind of driving positions, and playing Need for Speed on this did feel a little bit better than the other one. The clicks as well on these are not the greatest compared to the ones on the Logitech. That they feel much better, less like sharp and annoying as well on the ear. Just everything on the Logitech is like this +1 kind of thing. But this is actually cheaper than the Thrustmaster, which is the bit that I don't really get from Thrustmaster. Normally Thrustmaster, like having used pretty much almost all of their steering wheels from like T150, T300S stuff to like the normal T80 baby, you know, rubber band attached wheel. Generally their stuff's pretty good, and their buttons and stuff on Thrustmaster are pretty good. This is just one area where Logitech absolutely has them beat. If you're looking at it between the two, I've suggested strongly just because of the triggers and because you can vary the input type. So what about performance and overall usage? Like I say, I played Dirt, I played NFS, and I played some Tekken, and across the board, this was generally better. The only one, like I said, for NFS, because your controls are sitting up front, it doesn't sit as nicely when you are sitting like this. It's quite difficult to push when you know these parts of your hand can't really hold on to anything underneath it. You literally, all your pressure is coming from your palm onto the device. Like when you go into that mode, it's like really awkward. Your hand has to make like super far back kind of like contortions, and you can see I can't really get comfortable there. When you have to use these, it does become not ideal, but everything else was just like way better. I mean, yeah, just check the Perfect with Lord. How's it? Anywho, that is all I have for you in this review. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit us up with a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the flip side.